December 24th, 1887. The Montana Territory was as unforgiving as any place God ever carved from ice and stone. And there I was, Cole Brennan, a drifter with nothing but a horse, a worn saddle, and ghosts that rode alongside me wherever I went. I'd been riding for 3 days straight, trying to outrun memories I couldn't shake. The frontier was dying, they said. Towns were sprouting up where buffalo once roamed. The old ways were fading like smoke. And men like me? We were relics wandering through a world that didn't need us anymore. But that afternoon, when the snow started falling thick as wool and the temperature dropped so low my breath froze midair, I knew I was in trouble. Real trouble. The kind that puts a man in the ground and doesn't ask permission first. That's when I saw her. A little girl, no more than 7 or 8, standing in the middle of that desolate road. Blonde braids poking out from under a threadbare hat. Cheeks red from cold. Eyes big as silver dollars. Staring up at me like I was the answer to a prayer I hadn't heard. "Mister," she said, her voice barely cutting through the wind. "Is Santa late because he can't find our ranch?" Now, I'd seen a lot of strange things in my 32 years. I'd watched men die over card games and honor. I'd seen entire towns burn to ash. I'd stared down the barrel of more guns than I could count. But this little girl, standing alone in a blizzard on Christmas Eve, asking about Santa Claus, that stopped me cold. What I didn't know then was that her simple question would lead me into the most dangerous night of my life. A night where the line between salvation and damnation would blur like the snow swirling around us. A night that would test whether a broken man could still do something good in this world. I pulled my horse to a stop, the leather reins creaking in my frostbitten hands. The girl didn't move, didn't flinch. Just stood there like she'd been planted in that spot by Providence itself. "Child, what are you doing out here?" My voice came out rougher than I intended. Years of silence and whiskey will do that to a man. "Looking for help," she said simply. "Mama sent me. She said to find the first person I saw and bring them back. It's an emergency. An emergency. On Christmas Eve. In the middle of nowhere, Montana, with a blizzard rolling in fast enough to bury us both. Perfect. Where's your mama? I asked, already knowing I wasn't going to like the answer. The ranch. It's not far. Maybe 2 miles that way. She pointed west, toward a horizon that was rapidly disappearing behind a wall of white. 2 miles in this weather might as well have been 20. But I looked down at those eyes. Blue as a summer sky, filled with a hope that had no business existing in this harsh world. And I knew I couldn't ride away. Whatever demons I was running from, they'd have to wait. "Get up here," I said, extending my hand. She grabbed it without hesitation, and I pulled her up onto the saddle in front of me. She was light as a feather, shivering like a leaf in a windstorm. I wrapped my coat around her small frame. "What's your name, girl?" "Emma. Emma Hartford. Cole Brennan." "Now, Emma Hartford, you're going to tell me exactly what this emergency is." As we rode, she told me. Her words came in bursts between shivers. Her father had left 2 weeks ago to get supplies from the nearest town, Copper Ridge, 15 miles east. He should have been back in 4 days. But he never came. Then yesterday, her older brother Jacob went looking for him. He hadn't returned either. Now it was just Emma, her mother Sarah, and her baby brother Tommy at the ranch. And this morning men had come. 3 of them, maybe 4, Emma wasn't sure. They'd circled the property at dawn, watching, waiting. Her mother had seen them through the window and knew what they were. The kind of men who prey on isolated families. The kind who know when a place is vulnerable. "Mama loaded Papa's rifle," Emma said, her voice getting smaller. "She told me to run out the back. Said to find help. Said if Santa could find us way out here in the middle of nowhere, then surely somebody good could too." My jaw tightened. I knew exactly what kind of men she was talking about. The frontier was full of them. Vultures in human skin, waiting to pick clean whatever scraps the West left behind. A woman alone with 2 children? That was an invitation to monsters. "How long ago did you leave?" I asked. "Maybe an hour. I ran as fast as I could." But she looked down at her small feet, wrapped in boots too big for her. Probably her brother's. An hour. That meant those men could have already made their move. Could have already done whatever evil they came to do. But I couldn't tell Emma that. Couldn't let her know that hope might already be dead. "We'll get there," I said, urging my horse faster. "Hold on tight." The snow was falling so thick now I could barely see 10 feet ahead. The wind cut through my shirt like knives. Without my coat, the cold was already working its way into my bones. But I kept pushing forward, following Emma's directions, praying we weren't too late. "Mr. Brennan?" Emma's voice was barely audible over the storm. "Yeah. Do you believe in Santa Claus?" Of all the questions I expected, that wasn't one of them. I thought about lying, about giving her the comfort that all children deserve. But something in me, maybe the last honest piece left, wouldn't let me. "No, Emma, I don't." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "That's okay. Mama says sometimes grown-ups forget how to believe in good things. She says that's what makes them sad." Out of the mouths of babes. This little girl, whose world was falling apart, was trying to explain to me why my soul felt hollow. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Your mama sounds like a wise woman." "She is. That's why we have to save her." Save her. As if I was some kind of hero. I wasn't. I was just a broken man who happened to be in the right place at the wrong time. Or maybe the wrong place at the right time. Either way, I was committed now. The ranch appeared through the snow like a ghost. A small wooden structure, smoke rising from the chimney. And circling it like wolves, just as Emma described, were 4 horses. 4 men with bad intentions. We weren't too late, but we were cutting it damn close. I pulled up short about 50 yards from the ranch, keeping us hidden behind a cluster of snow-covered pines. Emma started to speak, but I put a finger to my lips. We needed to assess the situation before charging in blind. 4 men, like she'd said. I could see them now, spread out around the property. 2 by the front porch, 1 near the barn, 1 watching the back. They were patient, methodical. Not common bandits looking for a quick score. These were men who'd done this before. The one on the porch, clearly the leader, was tall and broad, wearing a long duster coat. Even from this distance, I could see the authority in his posture. He was talking to the door, negotiating. That was good. Meant Sarah Hartford was still alive, still barricaded inside. "That's good news," I whispered to Emma. "Your mama's holding them off. Can you stop them?" Her voice trembled with fear and hope mixed together. Could I? For against 1 weren't odds I'd choose. But I'd faced worse. And something about this situation, this little girl's faith, this mother's courage, it stirred something in me I thought had died years ago in a Kansas gully where my own family was buried. "I'm going to try," I said. "But I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that?" She nodded. Those blue eyes locked on mine with absolute trust. "God help me." I dismounted, keeping low. "You're going to stay right here with the horse. Don't move, don't make a sound. If things go bad, if you hear shooting and I don't come back, you ride east. Keep the setting sun on your right side. You'll hit Copper Ridge eventually. Find the sheriff. Understand?" "But, Emma, promise me." She bit her lip, tears forming. "I promise." I checked my Colt .45, 6 rounds. I had maybe a dozen more in my belt. Against 4 men, I'd need every bullet to count, plus a healthy dose of luck I wasn't sure I deserved. Moving through the snow was treacherous. Every step crunched, every breath clouded. But the storm was my ally, the wind and snow covered my approach. I circled wide, coming up on the man near the barn first. He was young, maybe 20. With a scraggly beard and nervous eyes that kept darting around. Follower, not a leader. That was good. Followers hesitated. I closed the distance, coming up behind him silent as death. My arm snaked around his throat, cutting off his air before he could cry out. He struggled, but cold and surprise had weakened him. 30 seconds and he went limp. I lowered him into the snow, took his rifle and moved on. 3 left. The one at the back of the house was harder. Older, more alert. But he'd made the mistake of standing too close to the corner, probably trying to stay out of the wind. I picked up a chunk of ice and tossed it to his right. His head snapped toward the sound, hand going to his gun. That's when I rushed him. We went down hard, rolling in the snow. He got one hand on his pistol, but I slammed his wrist against the frozen ground until he lost his grip. Then I introduced his face to my fist, once, twice, 3 times until he stopped moving. 2 down, 2 to go. But these were the hard ones, the men on the porch in full view of each other. I crept around to the side of the house, pressing against the rough wooden wall. My breath came in ragged gasps, not from exertion but from cold. Without my coat, hypothermia was becoming a real concern. But I pushed that thought away. Finish the job first. Freeze later. Mrs. Hartford. The leader was shouting. You're making this harder than it needs to be. We just want to talk about your property taxes. Your husband left some debts. We're here to collect. That's all. No need for anyone to get hurt. Property taxes. The oldest lie in the book. I'd heard it before, seen how it played out. They'd force their way in, take what they wanted, and leave nothing but ashes and tragedy behind. My husband paid his taxes. Sarah's voice came from inside, strong despite the fear I could hear underneath. You're liars and thieves. The law will hear about this. The leader laughed, a cold sound devoid of humor. Ma'am, the nearest law is 15 miles away in a blizzard. And your husband? He paused for effect. Well, let's just say he won't be coming home to confirm any payments. The implication hung in the air like a noose. They'd done something to Robert Hartford. Emma's father wasn't late. He was dead. Sarah must have understood too, because I heard a sob from inside, quickly stifled. Now, the leader continued, his voice turning hard, you've got 1 minute to open this door. After that, we're coming in, and I can't promise we'll be gentlemanly about it. I had to move. Now, time collapses in moments like these. The whole world narrows down to breath, heartbeat, and the weight of iron in your hand. I'd been here before, standing at the edge of violence, knowing that the next few seconds would determine who lived and who died. I stepped around the corner, both guns raised, mine and the rifle I'd taken. Gentlemen, I said, my voice cutting through the wind. I think the lady asked you to leave. Her head snapped toward me. The leader's eyes went wide, then narrow. He was calculating, measuring. His partner, a scarred man with a face like weathered leather, immediately reached for his gun. I wouldn't, I said, the rifle trained on him. You'll be dead before it clears leather. The scarred man froze, hand hovering over his pistol. Smart. He'd live a few seconds longer. Who the hell are you? The leader demanded. Someone who doesn't like your manners. I took a step forward, keeping both men in my line of sight. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to mount up and ride away. Do that and we all see tomorrow. Make a different choice, and this snow's going to run red. The leader studied me with cold, dead eyes. I'd seen that look before, in mirrors mostly. He was a killer, same as I'd been. Same as I maybe still was. The difference was, today I was on the right side. For of us, one of you, he said slowly. You might get one, maybe two, but you won't get us all. 2 of your men are already down, I said flatly. One's sleeping off a headache behind the barn. The other's taking a nap by the back wall. So it's 2 against 1. And I've beaten worse odds. Doubt flickered across the scarred man's face. The leader's jaw tightened. He knew I wasn't bluffing. Even so, he said, you shoot me, Carson here gets you. We all die. That what you want? I've made peace with dying, I said, and meant it. Have you? The standoff stretched. Snow fell between us like a curtain, the wind howling its approval of the violence about to unfold. Inside the house, I could hear Sarah Hartford's ragged breathing. Somewhere behind me, hidden in the trees, Emma was watching. Waiting. Couldn't let them win. Not today. Not here. Carson? The leader said softly, never taking his eyes off me. On 3. My finger tightened on the trigger. This was it. 1. I shifted my weight, preparing for the draw. 2. Time slowed. I could see every snowflake, feel every beat of my heart. The door burst open. Sarah Hartford stood in the doorway, Robert's rifle raised and aimed. She was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with fierce green eyes and determination written across every feature. She looked like someone who'd been pushed to the edge and decided to push back. "My house, my rules," she said, her voice steady as stone. "You're outnumbered now, 3 against 2. And unlike you cowards, we're fighting for something that matters." The dynamic shifted instantly. The leader's confidence cracked. Carson looked like he wanted to bolt. 2 guns they might have challenged. 3 was suicide. "This isn't over," the leader hissed. "Yeah, it is," I said. "Because if I ever see your face again, I won't be so generous with second chances. Now ride." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Carson took a step back, then another. "Boss, this ain't worth it. Let's go." The leader's hand hovered near his gun. I could see him running calculations, weighing pride against survival. Finally, survival won. He backed down the porch steps, never turning his back to us. "You just made a powerful enemy," he said to me. "Add it to the list." They mounted up, collected their unconscious companions with muttered curses, and rode into the storm. We watched until they were swallowed by the snow, until even the sound of hoofbeats faded to nothing. Only then did I lower my guns. Only then did I let myself breathe. Sarah Hartford sagged against the doorframe, the rifle dipping. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank God you came." "Don't thank God," I said. "Thank Emma. She's the one who found me." "Emma." Sarah's eyes went wide with panic. "Where is she? Is she—" "She's safe. In the trees with my horse." Relief flooded her face, followed immediately by tears. She'd been holding it together through pure will, and now that the danger had passed, the dam broke. "My husband," she choked out. "They said—" "I know." I didn't have comfort to offer, just truth. "I'm sorry." She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I should get Emma, and you should come inside before you freeze to death. You're not wearing a coat." I looked down at myself, suddenly aware of how numb my body had become. The cold was a living thing now, burrowing into my bones. "Yeah," I managed. "Inside sounds good." The Hartford ranch was modest but well-kept. One main room served as kitchen and living area, with 2 smaller bedrooms branching off. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, throwing dancing shadows across walls adorned with simple decorations. A wedding photograph, children's drawings, a cross carved from pine. Sarah had retrieved Emma, and now the little girl clung to her mother like a barnacle, face buried in Sarah's dress. The reunion had been tearful and grateful, full of whispered words I wasn't meant to hear. I stood by the fire, trying to thaw the ice from my veins. My hands shook. Whether from cold or the adrenaline crash, I couldn't say. Maybe both. "Here." Sarah appeared beside me, pressing a cup of hot coffee into my trembling hands. "Drink this. You're hypothermic." I wrapped my frozen fingers around the tin cup, letting the heat seep in. The first sip burned all the way down, but it was the good kind of burn. The kind that reminds you you're alive. "Thank you," I muttered. "Thank you," she corrected. "You saved our lives, Mr. Brennan. That's a debt I can never repay." I didn't know what to say to that. Gratitude made me uncomfortable. I wasn't used to being the hero of anyone's story, least of all my own. "Emma," Sarah called. "Bring Mr. Brennan one of your father's coats, the heavy one." Emma scurried off and Sarah turned back to me. Up close, I could see the toll fear had taken on her. Dark circles under her eyes. Lines of worry carved into her forehead. The weariness of someone who'd been strong for too long. "Those men," I said. "They'll come back. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. They always do." "I know." Her voice was resigned. "That's why we can't stay here. Soon as the storm clears, we'll pack what we can and head to Copper Ridge. Maybe from there, head further east. Start over somewhere safer." Emma returned with the coat, thick wool, lined with fleece. I shrugged it on, grateful for the warmth. It smelled of tobacco and leather and honest work. Robert Hartford's coat. A dead man's warmth. "What about your husband?" I asked quietly. And your son? Sarah's face crumpled for just a moment before she regained control. Robert's dead. I've known it in my heart for days. And Jacob. She glanced at Emma, who was now sitting by the fire, and lowered her voice. Jacob's smart. If something happened to his father, he wouldn't come straight back. He'd go for help first. I have to believe that. Hope. That's what she was clinging to. The same thing that had kept her barricaded behind that door, that had given her the courage to step out with that rifle. Hope was a powerful thing, I'd learned. Sometimes it was all that stood between a person and the void. You should rest, I said. I'll keep watch tonight. Make sure they don't double back. You don't have to, Mrs. Hartford. I didn't come all this way to leave the job half done. She searched my face, looking for something. What she found there seemed to satisfy her because she nodded. Call me Sarah, and I'll make up the couch for you. It's not much, but it's more than I deserve. The words came out before I could stop them. Sarah tilted her head, curious, but didn't press. Instead, she moved to check on Emma, who'd fallen asleep by the fire, exhausted from fear and cold. Mr. Brennan? A small voice called from one of the bedrooms. I turned to see a little boy, couldn't have been more than 4, peeking around the doorframe. Tommy, I presumed. That's me, I said. Are you Santa? The question hit me like a punch. I almost laughed, but the sincerity in his eyes stopped me cold. This child, who'd spent the day hiding while dangerous men circled his home, still believed in magic, still believed someone good was coming. No, son, I'm not Santa. His face fell. Oh, Emma said Santa couldn't find us. That's why Daddy didn't come home. My throat tightened. How do you explain the cruelty of the world to a child? How do you tell him that evil men, not lost directions, had stolen his father? Sometimes, I said carefully, kneeling down to his level, Santa sends helpers, people who happen to be in the right place at the right time. Maybe I'm one of those. Tommy considered this seriously. Did Santa tell you to come here? In a way, I said, thinking of Emma standing in that storm. Yeah, in a way he did. This seemed to satisfy him. He smiled. A bright, pure thing that had no business existing in this dark world, and disappeared back into his room. I stood there, staring at the empty doorway, feeling something crack open inside my chest. A fissure in the armor I'd built around my heart. It hurt, that crack, but it also felt like something I'd been missing for a very long time. Behind me, Sarah was humming softly, a Christmas carol. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside this small ranch house, there was warmth and light and the fragile hope that tomorrow might be better than today. For the first time in 3 years, I wanted to believe that too. I kept watch through the night, sitting by the window with my Colt in my lap and Robert Hartford's coat wrapped around me. The storm had intensified, turning the world beyond the glass into a swirling white void. Nothing was getting through that weather. Not men. Not help. We were isolated, cut off, alone. That was fine. Alone, I understood. The house had fallen silent hours ago. Sarah and the children slept, exhausted by fear and relief. The fire crackled softly, occasionally popping and sending sparks up the chimney. In the quiet, my thoughts turned dark. 3 years. That's how long it had been since my own Christmas Eve nightmare. Since I'd come home to find my farm burning, my wife and daughter gone, taken by a fever that swept through Kansas like the angel of death. I'd been in town, buying supplies, planning to surprise them with gifts I couldn't afford. When I returned, there was only smoke and silence and a neighbor's grim expression. Mary and little Annie buried them on Christmas morning while the world celebrated hope and miracles. What kind of God lets a 6-year-old die while men like me, men with blood on their hands, keep drawing breath? I've been running ever since. Running from memories, from blame, from the possibility of caring about anything ever again. If you don't care, you can't lose. If you don't love, you can't be destroyed. That was the wisdom I'd learned in the ashes of my old life. But sitting here, in this house full of people I just met, I felt that wisdom crumbling. Emma's question in the storm. Tommy's innocent belief, Sarah's fierce courage. They'd reminded me of something I tried to forget. That hope wasn't just foolishness. That believing in good wasn't weakness. That maybe a man could be broken but not beyond repair. Can't sleep either? I turned to find Sarah standing in the doorway of her bedroom, wrapped in a shawl, her hair loose around her shoulders. Keeping watch, I said. That storm's not letting anything through. Not even those men. She moved to the fire, adding another log. You should rest. You've done enough. I've done what needed doing. That's not the same as enough. She studied me in the firelight. You've lost someone. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. I can see it in your eyes, she continued, sitting in the chair across from me. The same look I've been seeing in the mirror since Robert didn't come home. Like a piece of your soul wandered off and didn't come back. That's a poetic way of putting it. My mother was a poet. I learned from her that sometimes the hardest truths need beautiful words to make them bearable. She pulled the shawl tighter. You don't have to tell me, but if you want to talk, I'm a good listener. God knows I could use the distraction. Maybe it was the late hour. Maybe it was the warmth and the safety of these four walls. Maybe I was just tired of carrying the weight alone. Whatever the reason, I found myself talking. I told her about Mary and Annie, about the fever and the farm and the Christmas that broke me, about the 3 years of drifting, trying to outrun grief that moved faster than any horse, about becoming hollow, mechanical, going through the motions of living without actually being alive. Sarah listened without interruption, without judgment. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. My mother also used to say, she finally spoke, that God doesn't give us more than we can bear. But I think that's horseshit. Despite everything, I smiled. Strong language from a preacher's daughter, I'd wager. Pastor's, actually. And yes, he'd be scandalized. She smiled back, sad but real. The truth is, life gives us exactly as much as it wants to, and it doesn't care if we can bear it. We either survive or we don't. And if we survive, we get to decide what that survival looks like. And what does yours look like? I don't know yet, but I know it includes my children being safe, growing up, having a chance at the life Robert and I dreamed for them. Her eyes met mine. You helped give them that chance. That means something. Maybe it means you're not as broken as you think. Or maybe I just happened to be in the right place. Maybe, she allowed. Or maybe Emma was right. Maybe sometimes Santa sends helpers. People who need to save someone else so they can remember how to save themselves. The words hung between us like a bridge. I wanted to cross it, wanted to believe that redemption was possible for someone like me. But belief was a muscle I hadn't exercised in so long. I wasn't sure I remembered how. Get some rest, Mr. Brennan. When morning comes, we'll figure out the next steps together. Cole, I said. Call me Cole. She nodded and returned to her room, leaving me alone with the fire and my thoughts. But the thoughts were different now. Softer, less jagged. Like maybe, just maybe, I could carry them without bleeding. Dawn broke cold and clear. The storm had passed in the night, leaving behind a world transformed. Snow covered everything in pristine white, sparkling in the early light like diamonds scattered by a careless god. I dozed off sometime before dawn, my head against the window frame, the Colt still in my lap. Sarah's voice woke me. Cole, someone's coming. I was on my feet instantly, gun raised, moving to the window. Sure enough, 2 riders were approaching through the snow. My hand tightened on the pistol grip. Then I saw the smaller rider was just a boy. 15, maybe 16, with the same blonde hair as Emma. Jacob! Sarah's cry was half sob, half prayer. She threw open the door and ran into the snow, not bothering with a coat. The boy dismounted and caught her as she crashed into him, both of them falling to their knees in the drifts. The other rider I recognized even from a distance. The silver star on his chest caught the morning sun. Sheriff. Jacob had done exactly what his mother had hoped. Gone for help. I stepped onto the porch, keeping my gun visible but not threatening. Old habits. Always let lawmen see your hands. The sheriff was a grizzled man in his 50s, with gray in his beard and eyes that had seen too much. He took in the scene quickly. The reunion, me standing guard, the tracks in the snow from last night's confrontation. "You the one who ran off the Dalton gang?" he asked. "If that's what those four called themselves, then yes. They're wanted men. Stage robbery, claim jumping, suspected of killing at least 3 homesteaders in the past year." His eyes narrowed. "You kill any of them?" "No, sir. Knocked 2 unconscious. Encouraged them all to leave." "Encouraged?" The corner of his mouth twitched. "That's diplomatic. Jacob here told me there was trouble. Seems we were already too late for Robert Hartford. Found his body yesterday, 15 miles east. Dalton's work, no question." Sarah's sob carried across the snow. Jacob held her tighter, his young face aging years in that moment. From the doorway, Emma appeared, took in the scene, and went to her mother and brother, completing their circle of grief. "We'll get them," the sheriff said, his voice hard. "They'll hang for what they've done. Justice. The law." It sounded good, civilized. But I knew the odds. Men like the Daltons were smoke. Hard to catch, harder to hold. By the time posses formed and legal wheels turned, they'd be in the next territory, terrorizing the next family. Still, I nodded. "I hope so, Sheriff." He studied me for a long moment. "You got a name?" "Cole Brennan." Recognition flickered in his eyes. "The Cole Brennan? From the Kansas border troubles." My jaw tightened. So my reputation had traveled. "That was a long time ago." "Not that long. You were with a different life." I cut him off. "I'm just a drifter now." The sheriff seemed to consider this, then nodded slowly. "Well, this drifter saved 3 lives last night. That counts for something. Mrs. Hartford wants to speak with you." I walked down from the porch, approaching the family slowly. Sarah's face was streaked with tears, but her eyes were clear, resolved. "Sheriff's offered to escort us to Copper Ridge," she said. "We're going to stay with Robert's brother until we figure out what comes next." She paused, swallowed hard. "I want you to come with us, Cole. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. It's the least we can offer." It was a generous offer. More than generous. A place to rest, to recover, maybe even to heal. A family that would welcome me, that owed me their lives. And that's exactly why I couldn't accept. "I appreciate it, Sarah. More than you know. But I need to keep moving." "Why?" Emma's voice, small and confused. "Don't you want a home?" I knelt down to her level, saw those blue eyes filled with the same hope from yesterday. "Sometimes, Emma, the best way to find your way is to stay lost a little longer. But I promise you something, what happened here, what your family showed me, I'm gonna carry that with me. And maybe someday, when I find where I'm supposed to be, I'll remember that homes are built by people who don't give up. People like your mama." Emma hugged me then, fierce and sudden. I hugged her back, feeling that crack in my heart widen. Still hurt, but pain, I was learning, could mean healing. Could mean the ice was finally breaking. I stood, tipped my hat to Sarah and Jacob, shook the sheriff's hand, and walked to my horse. "Cole," Sarah called out. "Thank you for everything. Merry Christmas." I looked back at them, this family I'd saved, this family that had saved me in ways they'd never understand. "Merry Christmas, Sarah Hartford." I rode east that Christmas morning, leaving the Hartford ranch behind. The snow sparkled under a clear sky, the storm's fury spent. The world looked new, cleansed, like maybe it was offering everyone a fresh start. Did I believe in Santa Claus? No, I still didn't. But I believed in something better. I believed in people who stood their ground when the world tried to push them down. I believed in little girls brave enough to walk into storms looking for help. I believed in mothers fierce enough to protect what they loved. I believed in the possibility that a man could do one good thing, even if he'd done 100 bad ones before. Emma had asked if Santa was late because he couldn't find their ranch. The truth was simpler and more complicated. Santa wasn't late. He just sent a different kind of miracle, the kind where broken people help each other survive, where strangers become saviors, where a lone cowboy running from his past finds something worth stopping for. As I rode toward Copper Ridge, toward whatever came next, I realized Sarah had been right. We don't get to choose what life gives us, but we do get to choose what our survival looks like. And for the first time in 3 years, I chose hope over emptiness, purpose over drift. Maybe I'd find a place to settle down eventually. Maybe I'd keep wandering. But either way, I'd carry the memory of that Christmas Eve, of a little girl's question, a mother's courage, and the reminder that even in the darkest storms, there's always a light waiting to be found. You just have to be brave enough to look for it. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it finds you first.